This is Behind the Mic with Brad Dalius.
Live from Kings Cove inside the Toyota Sports Center here in El Segundo. It's Behind the Mic. Brad Dalius and Keith Jackson hanging out. It's our favorite spot to be on Thursday evenings here, Behind the Mic. Thanks for everybody who's listening right now on BehindTheMicShow.com and also on the official Behind the Mic app. Great to have you with us. Another full slate of action tonight. 2 hours as usual, 7 to 9 Pacific. From NHL playoffs to the NBA, Major League Baseball. We have a lot to cover tonight here, Keith. Right off the bat tonight, though, we're going to talk hockey, or actually, we'll get to hockey in just a second. We're going to talk boxing right off the bat because Triple G still needs a fighter in his May 5th fight. Obviously, he needs to get somebody, so that's caused somewhat of a talking point here to try and find someone to fill in with him, to fight him on May 5th.
Absolutely.
And we figured who better to talk boxing than none other than world champion boxing legend Roy Jones Jr., who now joins us on the line from the gym, I may add. Roy, how are things going tonight, man? We appreciate your time.
Hey, things are going very, very good, man. Things are good.
Well, it's great to have you with us tonight here as we talk a little boxing. Keith and I love diving into this realm every so often. We don't always get to do it, but we have to talk about this fight on May 5th that may or may not happen. We don't know. Triple G still needs to have someone to fight, obviously, for it to take place after the fallout of Canelo falling through. So we'll have to see how it plays out. What are your thoughts right now, Roy, on this potential fight on May 5th, where it stands and where it may go?
Well, there's a young fighter who just won a BC super middleweight belt, or maybe the WBA. Either way, I think there's a next him who's the super middleweight champ. And I think he is the guy that'll be the perfect guy to fit in and fight Triple G on May 5th. Canelo can't fight right now. It's very unfortunate what happened with Canelo. That does happen. We have heard of that happening several times before. And it's very unfortunate right now he can't fight. The other thing is that the better fight to see will be Triple G versus Danny Jacobs. Danny Jacobs has April 28th fight that I don't think that they will sacrifice and put themselves in right now. I was HBO, and if you out pull Danny Jacobs from the April 28th fight, and then just take a week off and training and Triple G go to mile. Because that fight that we'll see again. If that's not the case, then I'll just try to fight the guy who has the man who's the super rep. By him, what's also on the table is either of the Charlo brothers. Because both them have been calling Triple G out now. That's another situation that would be a great situation to be on sync with the mic.
Oh, okay. So let me ask you this, Champ. Do you think the Danny Jacob fight should be more promising of him fighting Triple G? You think that they need to wait out and kind of wait for those fights to determine who Triple G should fight next?
No. What I'm saying is it's going to capitalize on the date. You scratch Danny from the fight here April 28th. He's got two take a different route, and you let Triple G pick up the mile. I'm sure that you would love to do that. I'm sure Triple G would love to do that because it's a bigger fight.
Okay, makes a lot of sense. And in your opinion, what matchup would you like to see for Triple G? What do you think would be the ideal matchup for him since Canelo's not fighting?
Well, me, I would like to see him.
I think we lost him. Did we lose him? Hello, Champ? Hey, Champ, we kind of dipped out there, so we couldn't hear what you said. Is it possible we can get you to
I like to
So we're having some technical difficulties with Roy's phone. And
Yeah, it looks like we're having some technical difficulties with his phone.
thought we might get him back. It was hanging on there for a second.
Yeah.
It's interesting, though, to get his thoughts, Keith, on this, because this has been talked about now, and it's up in the air, and it's really just fascinating because it's such a weird situation with Canelo being suspended and Triple G somewhat in limbo at this point in time.
Yeah. There he goes.
Yeah.
Hey, champ, we got you back.
A great fight for Triple G right now. Yeah, a great fight for Triple G right now would be Billy Joe.
Okay. All right, so you said a great fight would be between so that's the fight you ideally want to see.
Yeah, Billy Joe Saunders. Yeah, that'd be a really good fight for Triple G right now. Billy Joe Saunders would be a great fight for him right now.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, that's interesting. And let me ask you this: what do you think about the whole the Canelo situation? You think it's fortunate that happened to him? That this fight, you think it was the right move to do?
They didn't do it because they know that there have been cases of the meat being tainted, so therefore, if you're going to be in a situation where body is testing, you shouldn't eat the Mexican beef for a while because there are cases before that people have failed tests after eating the beef there. But if you know you got a big fight come to you, the last thing you do with body being involved is eat tainted meat. So it is a tough situation, an unfortunate situation. But it's not the first time it's happened, so you know there's always possibility if you eat the meat there.
How about as far as venue goes? Because venue is still up in the air, Roy, as you know, for this event. If it's going to happen, where would you maybe like to see this take place? Yeah, once again, we're being teased right now, Keith. It's in and out with Roy. I feel like we're just missing him, but...
Yeah, which fight you doing now?
Okay, we got you back, Roy. What'd you say, champ? In terms of where we asked what the venue think the
which fight you see where I like to play the Jake fight?
Yeah. Correct.
Yeah, Jake take place in New York at the Guard or the border or anything, but New York should be the best place because Triple G has a following everywhere. Then Jake has a lot of following. This following probably is going to be in New York.
Okay, so you think it's probably going to be in New York. Is what he's saying. All right.
Yeah.
Boxing legend Roy Jones Jr. joining us here on Behind the Mic, talking about if or not the fight will happen on May 5th. Triple G, obviously the competitor, he needs someone to go up against. We shall see how it plays out. Outside of this fight, though, Roy, in general, as far as like the state of boxing goes right now, what are your thoughts on some other fights potentially that you would like to see kind of come together that we haven't seen recently? All the attention right now is on this Canelo Triple G situation, but I feel like it might be taking the light away from some other things.
I like to see Triple G fight Danny Jacobs again. I would also like to see Bivol Kovalev. I'd also like to be in versus the one of Bivol Kovalev. I'd also like to see Joshua Wild. That's a bad fight to happen. It's a lot of good fights on the horizon. It is just time to be one of the ones at the top of my list, though.
Well, that's awesome. We would love to see that. And, of course, I know you would like to see that Anthony Joshua, Deontay Wilder fight happen. I mean, I'm pretty sure everybody wants to see that, right? Do you think that fight will bring back, heavyweight to start to come back in? And do you think that's going to be a huge fight for boxing in general in history?
Yeah, that's tremendous fight. I can see it. The outcome.
So once again, we're having trouble with Roy, and it's a shame because he's got some good insights in there, Keith. It's great to get his take on this.
Guys, thank y'all for the call. I got to get to the judge. So thank y'all for having me. Y'all call me after any time, but I got to get back to work now, okay?
All right, thanks, Roy. Once again, Roy Jones Jr. joining us here on Behind the Mic. We'll let you go, Roy. We appreciate the time, the couple minutes you can spare here, and we'll talk to you sometime down the line. And there he goes once again, Roy Jones Jr. here on Behind the Mic. A quick appearance, Keith. Again, sorry for the technical difficulties on Roy's phone there, but we did have him on for a couple minutes to talk about potentially who Triple G, like I said, who he could fight on May 5th, where it potentially could take place, and some other fights that he would maybe like to see that haven't come together yet in time. And we'll see. Like I said, though, I feel like this is taking the attention away from a lot of other things that could be happening. Some other fights that could formulate.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you said earlier, it's like we're having a lot of technical difficulty, but for the most part, I guess to get his intake on it, I mean, what I gained from the conversation was he would love to see Danny Jacobs and them kind of pushing that fight back May 5th and actually doing it like in September or something like that. And then
which you had kind of mentioned before, I want to say.
Yeah, we definitely had mentioned that before. And then on top of that, you have the Deontay Wilder situation with Deontay Wilder and Anthony Joshua. That's the fight everybody wants to see happen. It's really tough in the sport of boxing because a lot of people's hands are in the mix in terms of making things happen, but
exactly,
and that's the thing
about that.
Yes, and that's the thing about the Canelo and Triple G. That fight took so long to happen, and then it's fortunate it didn't happen. So there's a lot of things happen, but for the most part, I think I totally agree with Champion Roy Jones that they should push the fight until September, and the winner out of Danny Jacobs fight.
They might as well
do it.
At this point. They don't have anybody to fight Triple G, obviously, and there's no sense of putting him out there just to get it in for May 5th, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Might as well take your time on it. So there you go. Once again, our interview right there with boxing champion Roy Jones Jr. here on Behind the Mic. Our other interviews tonight, we're going to interview Sean Newman. He's a columnist for Rolling Stone magazine. He put out a great piece yesterday about the Andre the Giant HBO sports documentary that came out on Tuesday evening. I got a chance to watch it last night. I thought it was really good. Bill Simmons from The Ringer and the Bill Simmons podcast show, he was the executive producer of it. I thought it was interesting. I learned a lot, Keith, about it. And not just Andre the Giant and his career, but also the WWE and how it kind of started out as more of a regional, territorial sport, and how it obviously, once cable TV came along, it really expanded on a national level under Vince McMahon. So we could talk about that tonight. 8:30, Sean Newman from Rolling Stone magazine will join us to talk about Andre the Giant documentary. The NBA playoffs are set. We know that. Yeah. Stanley Cup playoffs are in action tonight. Colorado and Nashville are taking on each other right now. The Avalanche with a 1-0 lead over the Predators. Last night, the Kings fell to the Knights 1-0 in Game 1 of that best-of-7. They'll get back at it tomorrow night for Game 2. It's the off night tonight. And then, of course, you have the Anaheim Ducks in action tonight. So that's what's going on in the Stanley Cup Finals, or the Stanley Cup playoffs, I should say. And with the NBA playoffs, it's all set. Last night we had a great end of the regular season, Keith. Minnesota took care of Denver. They knocked them out, as we talked about last night, over at Grunions. So now you've got the playoffs officially set. What stands out to you as we look at these matchups? What's the one thing that stands out to you maybe in each conference right off the bat?
I'll just say this. San Antonio, Golden State, that series right there, I think Golden State will get done in 5 maybe. I can see that happening. Honestly, the battle was Miami-Philadelphia. That stands out me on the Eastern Conference. In the Western Conference, right now, for Saturday's game, New Orleans and Portland, I can say that's going to be you got the battle of the front court. You got Damian Lillard and McCollum on one end, and then you got Anthony Davis and Rajon Rondo on the other end. Of course, that's the backcourt and the front court there, but defense versus offense pretty much is what you're going to see. And I think that's going to be a battle because I think New Orleans plays a methodical game. They play a very methodical game. They go inside. They have no one to answer to Anthony Davis. But on the flip side, Damian Lillard's been on a tear for the last 2 months after All-Star or even before All-Star, and it hasn't slowed down at all.
No, he has been good, really good.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be the task is trying to stop him, and I think that's going to be a tall task to do. So that's going to be an interesting matchup within itself. But I'm really excited for this Miami-Philadelphia series.
Yes.
I am, because you got Ben Simmons, who's arguing, trying to be the Rookie of the Year. We should have which honestly, this will be a whole nother discussion. I think it should go to Donovan Mitchell because, for my simple reasons, he's a rookie. He's a real
Mr.
rookie.
Mitchell would agree with you on that one.
He's a real rookie. Let's just say what it is. He's a real rookie. I've had conversations with many people. He's a real rookie. And, Ben Simmons, again, he's not the number one option on this team, but he does make the train go, and he makes great decisions. And them going against Miami. Miami's a talented team. Hassan Whiteside has something against Joel Embiid. I don't know what it is, but they go at it, and he's going to come after him. And I think what it is Hassan Whiteside believes he's the best center in the league, and Joel Embiid is pushing him for that. And I think Joel Embiid is a great center, and possibly, let's say they are top 5.
Oh, yeah.
By far. So the battle of the centers is going to be a great addition to watching that in that series. And then you got Dwayne Wade coming back from Miami with a very young Miami team. That just has an addition, and you're just going to see a lot of star power here, man, in this series. And I think it's going to go down to I'm going to say I think it can go 7, and I think Miami can win it.
Wow. I mean, that'd be a classic series if it does go 7. I'm with you. I'm super intrigued by Philly-Miami. We talked about this a little bit last night on the show. The Sixers, after a 18-game winning streak to close out the regular season, their prize is a Miami Heat team that is very scrappy, and like you said, they potentially could pull off an upset. That could be the series of the first round in the East. And like you said, last night we talked about Portland, New Orleans in the West, and it's ironic that it's a 3-6 matchup in both conferences. Yeah, I agree with Anthony Davis and the way he's been playing recently, and we talked about Rondo. That could be a 7-game series. The NBA, I think, has to be really happy with what they've got here. They really do in both conferences, because a lot of times we've seen first-round matchups in the past in the NBA playoffs that have been less than desired. They just have not really done it for people, and it is reflected in the ratings a bit. But I think this year will be very, very different, obviously. Even Boston, with all the injuries, taking on a Milwaukee team with Giannis and everything that they possess, they have the ability to that could be a coin flip series, honestly, between Milwaukee and Boston, depending on how that eventually goes. And Washington, as I said last night, they've been a disappointment this year, but maybe they find a way to push Toronto in the first round, because Toronto, as we've talked about, has a lot to prove. They haven't had a lot of postseason success. And then you have Cleveland, Indiana in the East, that you think Cleveland should be able to win it, although Indiana is a fun team to watch, and they have been able to play good, consistent basketball at times. So we'll see how that one plays out. But honestly, from the West and to the East, these are good matchups. Do you think that Utah has a chance to beat OKC? That's my question for you. We haven't touched on that one yet.
Yeah. Watching that series, I don't know. It all depends. Look, Utah's a little deeper than on bench-wise than OKC. But OKC has star power, of course, of Russell Westbrook and Paul George and Carmelo Anthony. And when those guys play together, they're very hard to beat.
Yeah.
However, when they don't, they lose. And so I'll put it like this. I don't think that they can. I think OKC advances. I think Houston doesn't want them to advance.
Yeah.
Because that's going to be a tough game for them. You saw what happened their last game they played against each other. I think they were trying to beat OKC so bad to put them in that other bracket. Now you see what happened where they shouldn't fall. And that didn't happen. So I think OKC win. I think Utah pushes them, but they don't push them enough to beat them in the series. So I'm going to go with OKC.
And Lakers fan interest in this series obviously revolves around Paul George and trying to figure out what's good or what's bad for the Laker fan base, because you can make the case that if OKC goes far in the playoffs, that's more of a reason for Paul George to re-sign with the Thunder. But if they don't do as well, and if they have an early playoff exit, if they get upset by Utah in this first round, that's also a reason for him maybe to come back and more motivation for next year as well. So the Laker fans are in a tough spot. They're kind of caught between a rock and a hard place to figure out where should their rooting interest lie in this series. I do think it's better if OKC loses sooner versus later.
Really? See,
I do.
He eventually said that wouldn't be his ultimate decision.
Yeah.
Is if they win or lose, whatever. I personally think Paul George is staying.
Okay.
For the simple fact that he's got Russell Westbrook over there with him. Carmelo's over there with him. They're trying to do some things to get better. And I don't know. I just think that he's enjoyed his time over there. But I'm kind of on the fence with it too, in some ways, because there's some times where Russell likes to be a little selfish and kind of get his. And Paul George looks like he needs to be on the team where he needs to be featured as the main guy. And so eventually I think that, I don't know. But I'm kind of on the fence on it, but I'm more leaning towards that Paul George is going to stay in OKC.
Not what Laker fans want to hear, Keith.
I know. I'm a Laker fan myself.
Right. We'll see.
That's what's going to be,
Yeah, no, we'll see. We appreciate your candid answer. We'll see how it plays out. I just think that if I think Utah does have a very good chance to beat them, even with the star power that OKC possesses. If they beat them here in the first round, Paul George starts thinking, well, this was fun, but I maybe want to try out the waters in L.A.
Yeah.
With Lonzo Ball.
Yeah.
And maybe Julius Randle if he resigns. So we'll see. It's going to be a great series regardless. Houston takes on Minnesota. We knew that was the case as soon as the Timberwolves punched their ticket to the postseason last night. We both like Houston.
I'm going with Houston for
sure. 6, 5?
I'm going to say 6.
Okay, so they push them a little bit.
They push them. They do. I think Timberwolves win at home.
Okay.
2 games at home.
So they're able to hold serve at home court a little bit.
Yeah, I think so. Because you know why?
They should be able to.
Yeah, it's the 3. You live by the 3, you die by the 3.
Yep.
And if they have an off night, it can be off and that's it. And Thibodeau and his defensive team, they know how to guard the perimeter. And that's why I'd say I think in a way, this is going to be a good matchup for the simple fact. It's not going to be a good matchup. It's going to be interesting to me to watch because Thibodeau's a defensive coach. And how do you slow down James Harden? Or how do you slow down, Chris Paul, too, as well. And how those other guys respond. Eric Gordon, PJ Tucker, Trevor Ariza, how these other guys respond. So, and what's the strategy going to be for the Timberwolves? Are they going to slow the game down and pound it inside of Carl Town because there's nobody clearly stopping them down low? They have the advantage of the bigs. Or are they going to try to play small ball, which they'll probably lose in that aspect against Houston? I think the key to this series is preventing James Harden to get to the line 10 times or more. Because he gets to the line about, let's be honest, he lives at the line.
He scores most of his points there.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the key is to slow him down and not put him on the line. And I think that helps a lot.
We'll have to see how it plays out. The important thing for Houston is that they get off to a fast start. Not just in the first quarter of the first game, but in this first series. Like you mentioned last night, not just Houston, but other teams across the association in these playoffs. It's important to get off to a good start just because you want to get out of the first round. If you're a team who has aspirations to get to the finals or win a championship, history tells us that you probably want to make quick work of your first-round opponent.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
totally.
we'll see if Houston can do that. We'll see if Golden State can do that against San Antonio. And the same thing for the top 2 seeds in the East with Toronto and Boston. Obviously, Boston battling the injuries. So, at this point in time, any round that they can advance will be somewhat of a bonus. So we'll see how it plays out.
I got a question.
Yeah.
Just real fast. Who wins between the Boston-Milwaukee series?
I'm going to say Boston still finds a way to win, even with the injuries.
I don't know. I have to go with Milwaukee.
Yeah.
Milwaukee outs them. They got the more star power of the team. And I think Kyrie Irving, with him out and Aaron Gordon, that's just too much. Don't get me wrong. They have an excellent coach. They'll have an excellent game plan. But the Greek Freak, Bledsoe, Jabari Parker,
I hear that argument.
Con Baker, is going to be very tough to beat those guys.
That's why I said I think it's a coin flip series. I'll give it to Boston just because they have the home court. And like we saw with the Stanley Cup playoffs last night with all the home teams winning in the first round on the first night,
Absolutely.
home court can mean a lot too in the NBA playoffs. So I'll give it to Boston in a close series that honestly it could go 7. We potentially could see, Keith, multiple series that go 7 games in the first round.
Yes.
It could happen with Portland, New Orleans. We could see it with Philly, Miami, and maybe with Boston, Milwaukee. We could see it. So it could be a record. I don't know what the record is, how many Game 7s in the first round in the NBA playoffs all time, what that record is, but it could come close to it this year. We'll see. It's going to be a fun first round, though, and like I said, the NBA has to love these matchups and how far it could go. We'll step aside for our first break tonight. On the other side, we're going to go through the teams. We talked about the teams that did make the playoffs, but how about the teams that didn't make the playoffs? What do they need to improve to get to where these teams are next year in 2019? We'll go through a hand-picked selection of teams both in the Western and Eastern conferences. We'll talk a little Kings Knights as well. The Ducks are in action tonight, like I said, in their first-round matchup. And also, coming up later tonight at 8:30, we'll speak with Sean Newman. He's a columnist from Rolling Stone magazine. We're going to talk about the HBO documentary Andre the Giant and some things you probably didn't know about the famous wrestler. That and more coming up tonight here on Behind the Mic.
Our military service members volunteer to protect us in the most dangerous places around the world. They step up. And when they are severely ill or injured, returning to their families is only the beginning of their long road home. Beyond all the hospitals and doctors and surgeries they need just to survive, they also deserve whatever they need to truly live. All the in-home care and day-to-day help they need to live independently, on their own terms. Wounded Warrior Project long-term support programs were established to provide these brave men and women whatever they need to continue their fight for independence, at no cost, for life. So many of them need us, and it's time for a grateful nation to step up. Find out how you can do your part at findwwp.org.
It took me a long time to be able to say Chandler has cancer, because that is such a scary word. St. Jude takes care of absolutely everything. And knowing that we don't have to pay for all of the medical expenses, that's huge.
St. Jude allowed me to focus on being a mom to Bryce. And sometimes I'm just in awe of the impact St. Jude has, not only on this community, but the world.
St. Jude is uniquely positioned to advance the cures of pediatric cancer, I think better than any other institution in the world. The contributions make a big difference.
Donors are important to us because you get the feeling that you have a team behind you. We have the resources and we have the focus. And so if St. Jude doesn't do it, who will?
St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. Finding cures. Saving children. Learn more at stjude.org.
We all come together and stand together to serve our veterans. We invest in the latest technology.
We take the time to train the next generation of doctors and nurses. We work together to make sure we heal their bodies and their minds.
This is our mission. More than 300,000 of us working as one, together with families and loved ones. No matter where they live in this country, we'll be there.
We stand strong, united. Stand with us in caring for our veterans. Hi, I'm Danica Patrick and proud aunt. Watching my nieces grow, play, and learn is amazing. But not every child gets to be carefree. 1 in 6 kids in the U.S. are hungry. 1 in 6. That little girl sitting alone at the playground, she can't play like the other kids. She doesn't have the energy because she's hungry. School lunch will be her only meal today. It breaks my heart that this is the reality in our country, but it's something that Feeding America is working to change. Each year, the Feeding America network of food banks rescues billions of pounds of good food that would have gone to waste. This food is then provided to families and children in need. Being a kid should be about using your imagination, learning, and having fun. These children shouldn't have to miss out on simply being a kid because they're hungry. To find out how you can help end childhood hunger in your community, visit feedingamerica.org.
Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
Everyone is talking about healthcare these days. America spends twice that of other developed countries on our healthcare system, yet our health ranks near the bottom. How can we stop spending so much and getting so little? Shifting to a system based on primary care can help fix the problem. Patients with a primary care doctor live longer, healthier lives and are less likely to suffer from cancer, heart disease, or stroke. Primary care that is comprehensive and coordinated also saves money. Patients who have a primary care doctor spend 30% less on health care than patients who don't. States with a high number of primary care doctors have lower health care costs and higher quality care. Primary care can help make America healthy again. To learn more about the benefits of primary care, visit www.healthisprimary.org. This message is brought to you by America's Family Physicians.
You're listening to Behind the Mic with Brad Dalius.
Take us with you on the go wherever you may be. Download the official Behind the Mic app today on your smartphone. Check out our podcast on iHeartRadio. Welcome back inside the Toyota Sports Center. It's Kings Cove. Brad and Keith hanging out. Before the break, at the top of the show, we spoke with world boxing champion and legend Roy Jones Jr., whatever you want to call him. He's had a phenomenal career. He weighed in on his thoughts about the possible Triple G fight, trying to get him a competitor and maybe a venue as well. We got his thoughts on that, maybe some other fights that he would like to see happen in the world of boxing as well. So once again, we thank Roy for his time tonight here and calling into Behind the Mic. If you didn't hear me earlier, we're going to speak at 8:30 tonight with Sean Newman. He's a columnist for Rolling Stone magazine, getting his thoughts on the brand new HBO sports documentary, Andre the Giant. It was a good one. I caught a bit of it last night and learned a lot. So we'll discuss all of that with Sean tonight around 8:30. We also talked before the break about the NBA playoffs. The matchups are all set now. The games get underway on Saturday, and we'll see more action on Sunday as well. So NBA playoffs about to be in full swing. NHL playoffs in swing tonight. The Ducks are going to play this evening. They're going to face the San Jose Sharks in Game 1 of their series. They're tipping off just about now. So we'll touch on that later on this evening. And now we want to kind of play a little game, though, where we go around and, Keith, discuss some NBA teams that didn't make the playoffs this year and what they can maybe do to improve themselves going into next season. And who knows, maybe be playing in the postseason in 2019. Yeah. So right off the bat, let's start with the Sacramento Kings. What can they do to improve in just one area?
You know, they're young, so in their area, I think what they need to get is just some veterans. Not like Vince Carter's great for them, but some veterans in there that have a balance of veterans, players in there, and that have won championships or been in playoff atmosphere several times in their career. I think they need to go that route. The
Atlanta Hawks.
Oh God!
Where do you start?
You just had to go there, the Atlanta Hawks. They just need a prayer. They need a prayer. But
They need to resurrect Dominique Wilkins.
Yes.
That's what they really need.
Dominique Wilkins, Lenny Wilkins. You go down the line. They need to start really, honestly, they've been in the lottery like every year. They haven't improved at all. I think they need to really go in and think about making some trades for some guys. They got to make some trades for some good star power. And who wants to come down to Atlanta? You know, that's the problem is getting someone to Atlanta. So I think they need to revamp that franchise and get a superstar in there that people want to play with.
The New York Knicks.
A coach. Mark Jackson. That's it. They need to get Mark Jackson. Mark Jackson. And Mark Jackson is built the Golden State Warriors. Let's just say what it is. Steve Kerr came into a gift. And he put threw a little sauce on it, we could say, to help the team a little bit. But naturally, that was Mark Jackson's team. And Mark Jackson's a great coach. So I think that's what they need. They're looking for a coach now. I think Mark Jackson would be a great addition to them. They got the players. They got the nucleus. They just need the coach. Beasley has played well since Porzingis was out. I think that's a highlight of their year because they found him a star power player. They got potential, but they need a coach. And I think Mark Jackson's natural.
The Orlando Magic. It's been a long time since the days of Tracy McGrady. And even you think back to when they made the finals against the Lakers in 2009. They had a little star power then. Dwight Howard was there, obviously. He's at a different point in his career now. But the Magic just seem like a team that is in search of an identity, right?
Yeah. I think you hit it right on the nail, Brad, is them finding an identity, a style that fits them. I mean, they got players that want to go to Orlando. There's a lot of players out there that want to go to Miami, Orlando. Those are great places to live and raise a family. And, you know, I would just think for them, they need to start up in their front court. And they got Eric Gordon right now. They got some players. And they're trying to make some moves. But they need a point guard. They need a really good point guard to really get their engine going. So I'm going to go with a point guard for Orlando and finding their identity, yes.
The Phoenix Suns.
Well,
Charles Barkley's not coming back to play, by the way.
Yeah.
In case anyone's wondering.
Kevin Johnson, you know, that crew, Cedric Sabalas, that crew's not coming back. But, you know, they got a great player, Devin Booker. They got some good players, some good nucleus. They're just not winning games, and I think it's getting frustrating for their team right now. I think Devin Booker's he's a great player, but he needs some guidance. He needs somebody who could go underneath his wing and actually he can actually mentor him. You know, he's a great player with himself. He's the leader of that team right now, and I think they need to get over the hump. He wants to go. If they don't get into the playoffs next year, they're gonna lose it, I think. Personally.
I wouldn't be surprised.
He came out and said the other day that he says, from now on, I'm not missing the playoffs anymore. So that's showing some type of frustration. So I'm hoping that they can get some good additional players, and I think they will. They got, Josh Jackson. They got Devin Booker. They got the draft coming up. Hopefully they get a better player in there, but I think they need to make a trade to get a good veteran in there.
How about the Mavericks, Keith? Mark Cuban's team.
Well, we haven't seen anything from him since, we haven't seen in a while. Like, I feel bad for Dirk Nowitzki. He's won a championship, but I think he's content with that now.
Yeah, how much longer is he going to play?
I don't know, man. I mean, I think that this should have been his last season, but Mark Cuban is like what Robert Kraft is to Tom Brady. They can't break away from that.
That's a good point.
They just want him to go out on his own terms, and I think what they need is they need to go out and grab Julius Randle. I think they can grab Julius Randle, which I think he would go. They added an addition, a better player. And I don't know. I think Barrera's not the answer in terms of point guard situation. You need a really solid point guard playmaker on that team. And you got some shooters already. You got Harrison Barnes there, but you need a great point guard that's going to penetrate. And they need to go back to the style they played when they won the championship. Who can shoot the three. Point guard who can shoot the three like that. So coming off the screen, spreading the floor, and just knocking down threes. They need that. That's the type of style they need to get back to.
You've been lobbying for Julius Randle to sign with the Mavericks for a while now. Everyone who listens to this program knows that. I wouldn't be surprised if he does go there at this point in time. You bring up a great point, though, about how the closest comparison maybe that we've seen in sports to a Kraft-Brady type of relationship would maybe be a Cuban-Nowitzki relationship. That is a really, really interesting dynamic there that they have going on, and they just can't break apart. But it is amazing what a championship does, because they're always going to be champions down there because they were able to do it that one season. But without that, I mean, they've done nothing, which is amazing. But the championship obviously cancels everything else out. So Dallas, that's an interesting team. You had to see how they move forward. I give Nowitzki 2 more years. I can't see him playing any more than that at the very most. At the very most. I mean, 39, if he's going to come back and play at 40, you think maybe he can do it again at 41. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe next year is his last year.
Yeah, hopefully.
We'll have to see. The Brooklyn Nets.
Oh, jeez. Where do we start? I didn't even know that team existed. So.
A couple years ago, I mean, it goes to show you how irrelevant they've been. I got confused on a sports cast and mistakenly wrote on the paper New Jersey Nets.
Well, that's what we remember. They went to the championship with the
right.
Jersey Nets.
So they've done nothing, is my point, since moving to Brooklyn.
I think they just need to revamp the whole team. Start from scratch. Have a tryout. Try to get some guys from G League.
Are they out of that crazy deal with that they made with Boston, trading away all those picks? Are they out of that now, or are they still on the hook for that?
I don't know. They may be still.
Might still be on the hook for that.
Yeah, what a dumb move on their part. I don't know. That team has some soul searching to do, and they need to start off this summer to figure out what they want to do. They from the top to the bottom. I mean, the owners are not great, and so they need some soul searching there. I think we can start off and try to draft a center. Go with a center. Go with a star center. And who wants to play at Brooklyn? Maybe they should get Jay-Z involved, and like Drake is with Toronto. And so who wants to come to Brooklyn Nets? And one of these respected players in the league go to that team and then be the face of that team and that organization, and then they can build from there.
It couldn't hurt, right, for a guy like Jay-Z to put his stamp on it.
Yep.
The Hornets.
Ooh.
This is a team that will host the All-Star game next year, actually.
I'll say this. They're doing it. They picked up Mitch Kupchak as their GM. They are getting a little frustrated. They got their star player, Kemba Walker, is getting a little frustrated. The fact that he hasn't been in the playoffs. And
who could blame him?
Yeah, I totally get it. Dwight Howard's happy. So that's great, and he
finally Dwight Howard's in a good situation.
Yeah, he's happy, and I think he'll stay there for a long term. And he's getting back to his irregular self. He needed to be back in a smaller market, but I think they have it, man. I think the GM Mitch Kupchak coming in is a great move for them, and I think they make the playoffs next year.
It would be interesting. That it's really, they're overdue for it, I think, is the biggest thing. They really need to get to that point next season in 2019. Like I said, they'll host the All-Star game, so they have a little bit of notoriety coming their way. The Detroit Pistons.
Oh, well,
just missed the playoffs this year.
Yeah.
So they're a borderline playoff team.
They're borderline. Got Blake Griffin in there right now. And then they had some injuries and things like that. I think their point guard right now is who's their point guard right now? It's a Stuckey? No, it's not Rodney Stuckey. Shoot.
I haven't watched too many Detroit Piston games this year.
I'm gonna say Detroit Pistons. I'm gonna give it to you right now, guys. Detroit Pistons. No, you Pistons fans, I'm sorry that I don't. I forgot about you guys as point guard, but your PG is Reggie Jackson.
There we go.
Reggie Jackson. They got to get a better point guard. He's not a starting point guard. He can't be.
Who would you like to see them get?
Honestly, I would like to see them get. I think like they need something like a Kemba Walker in there.
Mm-hmm.
They need something like Bledsoe's over at Milwaukee. But I think they need something like that. Even if they get in the draft, maybe like a Trae Young.
Yes, that would be a good fit.
And they got players, man. They got Blake Griffin and Andre Drummond, who are all-stars. They just need a point guard. And I think once they have that, they'll be fine.
We'll see if they can add it. The last one, the Chicago Bulls.
Chicago needs Marvin Bagley Jr. Bottom line.
There we go.
Bottom line. Go get Marvin Bagley Jr. You're back in the runnings. You have Zach LaVine there. You got some decent players on your squad. Go get Marvin Bagley Jr. in this year's draft, and you guys will be in the runnings.
And there we go. We'll see which teams can improve going into next season. Teams that did not make the playoffs this year. And like I said, though, the best thing about those teams aside about the NBA playoffs is you have a lot of teams who are playing good basketball and could make for some compelling series. So we'll see the NBA playoffs once again start on Saturday. A couple scores now. So right now the Angels are up 7-0 over Kansas City. The Angels once again swinging the bats really well tonight. Ohtani has had a triple in this game. He's played well. Ian Kinsler in his first game back, Keith, with a home run for the Halos. So they're looking good, swinging the bat once again really well. 7-1 now. Kansas City is on the board as they play in the bottom of the 8th inning from Kauffman Stadium. Yankees, Red Sox once again tonight. The rubber matchup in that one, it's 6-3. Boston with the lead right now in Beantown. We'll keep track of those scores. Across the NHL at the moment, 2-1. Colorado on top of Nashville. San Jose and Anaheim are scoreless as they play midway through the first period. The game's on the USA Network, by the way. If you're searching through your TV right now and you just can't find it, you want to throw your remote, it's on the USA Network. Tampa Bay 5-2. They defeated New Jersey earlier tonight. Winners over the Devils. 5-1. Boston was impressive over Toronto. And Columbus knocked off Washington 4-3. That one a final in overtime. So last night, Keith, we talked a lot of Angels baseball on the show with Vincent Page from HaloHangout.com. We learned where the team is at and where they're going. And we talked a lot about the Yankees-Red Sox rivalry as it renews itself here in 2018. And the Dodgers are still trying to find their way for the most part. The biggest problem, though, I think with baseball, as we touch on this quickly, is how, unlike the NBA, although you have bad teams in the NBA, you have competitive markets and fan bases that will come out. For example, I mentioned this to you last night off the air, the fact that there's no LA market in these NBA playoffs, there's no New York, and there's no Chicago.
Yeah.
3 biggest markets. And Major League, and it's too fine, though, because during the regular season, fans do come out and they pay the tickets to watch the games. We know the Lakers, it's a very, very loyal fan base. It's almost identical to the Knicks. It's a very similar situation at Madison Square Garden. The Bulls are close, probably not as passionate there as you get with LA and New York. Compare that, though, to Major League Baseball during the regular season. Their biggest problem right now in this new season, Keith, is that they have about 10 or 12 teams that are just god-awful in markets that just aren't drawing right now. That's the big problem. You look at Tampa Bay down in St. Petersburg, they're having a hard time drawing. San Diego, the Padres are not going to be very good this year in 2018. You have a lot of different markets where they're just not drawing. It's a big problem, and talking about getting ratings from Major League Baseball right off the bat, especially when you start before Easter at the end of March, the brawl last night between Boston and New York, I don't think Major League Baseball will ever admit this, but I think they were fans of that.
Oh, yeah. And then there was one, you know what? There was one in San Diego as well.
Yes. Yeah, there was.
Yeah, I totally get it. It's a lot of games and stuff like that. And I think really for these teams, because they're the smaller market teams, because they're god-awful, like you said.
Yeah.
I think that they got to go out and they got to make trades and get some better players. So, because the only thing that's really going to bring fans and put fans in is winning, is W's. In that case. It's, because you want to see what's exciting. When a team's hot, think about it. The Las Vegas Golden Knights right now, right?
Yes.
Expansion team. Was people in Vegas really into hockey? No. Let's be honest with you, no. You know how they became interested? They went out and got the best players they could possibly get, and they start winning. And that just drew more people. It was like, wait a minute. Who lived in Vegas, like, let me go see this team. This team is actually doing something. Now, oh my God, this team actually has a chance to get a Stanley Cup in their first year. And we saw all of a sudden you see all kind of money coming in. Advertisement. People are going to the game, sold out. And now they're in the playoffs and they're their number 2 seed. So where I'm getting at is they did a great job getting some of the best players in the league to come to that organization and play. And that's what these baseball teams have to do. It was crazy to me when Miami, the
Marlins?
The Marlins, when Giancarlo Stanton left, and then I believe, who's the other guy? One of their other star players left. They didn't go out and do anything. They didn't go out and go get anybody. And it just seemed like they just it felt like to me like they just got punked, basically. Their players, they just left and then they just stood there and didn't do anything.
Yeah, Jeter wants to put his stamp on it.
Yeah.
It's just they blew the whole thing up, and they're just starting from ground zero. And I think I mentioned to you, I know people who went to the opener down there between the Marlins and the Cubs on opening day, and it's not just the team on the field, not just that product, but the whole organization, from concessions to customer service. It was a little lacking in professionalism. So it's a trickle-down effect.
Yeah, and I just think, I don't know what happened there, but they just totally, it was like, man, they really need, honestly, I think it's when you really get a big-time player on your team, it really changes a lot of things.
It does.
It trickles the things up. It changes your organization, the way it looks, and everything like that. So I'm going to just say that, these other lower level teams, the Nationals, they're okay right now. But, you look at it, the Cincinnati Reds, come on, man, 2-10.
Cincinnati's awful. Texas is going to have a dreadful year. They're 4-10. Kansas City 3-7.
And if Dodgers don't get it together, we're going to be upset right now. Okay, you can't be 2 games or 1.5 games ahead of San Diego Padres. Come on, you just got to the World Series last year and 1 game from winning, and then all of a sudden you're down sitting almost second to last in your conference. I don't care if you're missing Turner. I do not care. You do. There's no way that should happen.
By the way, if you want to weigh in on the conversation tonight, it's 213-261-7491, 213-261-7491. Here's the thing about baseball and getting off to a slow start. We all know you can't win a World Series or a pennant in April, but you could lose it at the beginning of the season.
Yeah.
Just ask Toronto, who got off to an awful start last year and who could never recover, although they played well at times in spurts during the regular season. They could just never get back to it. You can't start off terrible. I mean, if you're going to start off 10-20, 10-22, 23, you're going to have a really hard time rebounding from that. So luckily we're not there yet, but 4-7 is not what you're looking for. And like you said, I mean, just a game ahead of San Diego, just one full game, and
San
already
Diego
4.5 out in the division.
And already San Diego's already hurting as a city. Like, let's be honest. They lost the Chargers. The only thing they really got out there is the San Diego Padres, and they don't have a lot of people. They ain't got a lot of money filling the stands.
And that's a relatively new ballpark down there.
Yeah,
it's not that old.
It really sucks, for them. Only thing that city's known for, not to be knocking nobody in San Diego. I got San Diego people out there. The only thing you know in San Diego right now is going downtown to party and Fiesta Island to go jet skiing or go, next to SeaWorld and all that stuff. That's really the only thing right now. So
I got to get myself to Fiesta Island, apparently.
Oh, man, it's so much fun.
Yeah.
Hey, Brad, I've taken my skis out there July. I'll go out there again this year. You got to come, man. It's a great time, friend. We have a cookout, we ride the skis. However, I had someone get a ticket. I'm not going to call out your name, but got a ticket on my ski. Not calling out your name, but great time, great family fun, friends fun. We do it every year. We go somewhere, but around July is a great time to go, man.
Awesome, yeah. Anywhere in July, honestly, it is a great time to go.
So
you're right, though. They don't have a lot going for them right now. It's the only professional franchise there. It's hard to believe they had a Clippers a long time ago.
Oh, yeah.
Clippers used to be there a very long time ago. But I just think the biggest problem right now is these different teams getting off to a slow start, i.e. the Dodgers, and trying to rebound. But they do have a lot of time to make up for that. We talked about earlier the Knights and being an expansion team, and you talked about getting the right players. There's no doubt the best thing they ever did was drafting Marc-Andre Fleury in the expansion draft to get a goalie.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they're smart. In football, what do? If you're going to build a championship caliber team, you get a quarterback at first. In hockey, you get the goalie.
Yes.
That's what they did. So that leads me to believe that they have right people in the front office there who know what they're doing, who are smart.
Absolutely.
And it's paying dividends already here. And obviously, they had a phenomenal first season. We talked about it's got to be the best in the history of expansion teams. The first year, the best season we've ever seen from any team ever.
Hey, this is the first time I've ever seen something like this happen. I mean, you go down to the NBA, you had the Vancouver Grizzlies at the time. Remember that was them, and
the Bobcats coming in.
Coming in, and Charlotte moving over to New Orleans, and they had the Bobcats coming in. But I've never seen a team expansion team come in year one, and actually, like, we're now the big dogs of the NHL. We're the top dogs. That's like a slap in the face to the rest of the teams and organizations. Like, how did this happen? Okay, you win a couple games, but we'll figure you out. But no, they're beating everybody right now, and they're the second seed right now in the West. And
for how excited the fan base is, or the fan base they created, I should say, in Vegas for this hockey team, imagine what that excitement level is going to be like when the Raiders go there.
That's what I was just thinking. I said, this is like really an incentive for the Raiders. It's like, yes, going to Vegas. We got to get it going, guys. The Golden Knights are setting the tone for the Raiders.
They are.
They're setting a tone. Hopefully, the Raiders can pick it up. I know there's some guys, I'm not going to mention their name, on the Raiders that don't want to go to Vegas for many reasons, and I get it. But, it's going to be a great, what a great way. I mean, Vegas is going to make so much money. I mean, the money that they make already is insane. But
their biggest thing was what they were lacking in Vegas, if there was anything, was during the day.
Yeah.
Now they've got that. They will get it.
Dude, Monday night games?
Yeah.
Can you just imagine what those hotel packages and things are going to be? But they're going to, like, you have to leave to go for a football game for Monday night on like maybe a Saturday.
Yeah, well,
Saturday. No, yeah,
they
Saturday.
could maybe even. Here's the thing. Yeah, I was thinking Sunday afternoon. You make a weekend trip of it. For example, if the Rams are playing the Raiders in Vegas, you're going to fly probably. Yeah. Maybe some people will drive to Vegas on a Friday. Make a whole weekend of it.
That's what I'm saying.
If it's Monday night, perhaps they even leave. Well, LA would not be a good example, but if it's someone from an East Coast team, let's say it's Philly, Maybe they come on Friday.
Yeah. Well, let me tell you this. For the teams, it's like when they go, okay, it's like in the NBA. When the team has to travel to Toronto, they leave and they arrive. They don't do shoot around in Toronto because it's a great city. It's too much stuff to get into with those guys. Just ask the Clippers with Blake Griffin and his trainer. But it's too much stuff to get into. They love Toronto. Everybody knows that's a great city. So what the coaches do in the team, they say if their game's on a Saturday, then they're going to leave Friday, arrive Friday night, so the guys don't get to go out, and then they come in Saturday and play the game and game day, and then they leave right after the game.
Yeah.
It's the same thing like that. It's the same thing in Miami. It's the same thing in L.A. They do those exact same thing in those places, and because it's a distraction. It's a huge distraction, and so for Vegas, I mean, I can imagine it's going to be the same way in Vegas. A lot of these players gamble, and they gonna have a great time. And there's a lot of nightclubs. The nightclubs are gonna go up. The drinks and everything's gonna be going up. The pool parties to just the hotels for those weeks are gonna go up. It's gonna be insane in Vegas, and they're gonna make a large amount of money. So I know some residents who live in locals there, they're not too excited about it. But
I've heard that sentiment as well.
I've heard that, but I think they'll get on board after seeing what the Golden Knights do. If they're winning, they're gonna be on board.
Winning sells a lot. It really does. Yeah, it can't come soon enough. For me, I think it's great, specifically talking about the Raiders, that they're coming to Las Vegas. It's been a long time coming for them to get a football team. The last time they had one was the XFL back in 2001. Wow. He hate me. So it's been a very long time, and obviously that's the closest they've ever had. They never had a professional football team, so they'll finally get one with the Raiders in 2020 and beyond. Talking about other teams and just expansion teams, talking about the Knights, how about, we all know about the new Alliance Football League that's coming in 2019, less than a year now, right after Super Bowl 53 in Atlanta. The Alliance Football League will debut. What are your thoughts on, did you see that Steve Spurrier is going to coach the Orlando team? They haven't named the Orlando team yet, but there will be a franchise in Orlando. He's going to be the head coach. What are your thoughts on that? We haven't really discussed that yet. They're getting a big name, obviously.
They are. They're trying to compete with the NFL. And, I think the Alliance is going to be something. It's going to be competition for the NFL eventually. Let me tell you why. This is what they need to do. Big names. We said that. I said that. I remember saying that before.
Oh, yeah.
In order for them to do well, they're going to have to get big names. You got to go out and get the Ray Rices. You got to go out there and get the Ocho Cincos, the Terrell Owens. I'll do one even better that's in the news lately. Colin Kaepernick. You go and go get those guys because if the NFL is blacklisting them, like they did Colin Kaepernick this week, you can tell what their whole thing is. They finally, someone has really came out and said it. Now things say is Seattle, and they said that the reason if we pick you up, you cannot kneel during the national anthem. That's the main reason why they have blacklisted. Everybody's known it, but now someone has come out and said something. That's the reason why. And he declined and said, so good for him for declining it. I'll definitely give Colin Kaepernick his props for that. Hell, I don't give him his props for not voting. So you can't lead a movement and don't vote, especially in our way with things going on. I would say with the African Americans trying to go out and vote, and he's a biracial guy, but still, you can't leave a movement if you're not following examples and doing those things. So that's a whole other subject. But what I'm saying is for the Alliances, I think the Alliance should go out and get those guys to compete with the NFL. I think that's what will get draw the people to watch it. It's great they got a big-name coach, but you need big-name players. You get big-name players, it's a whole different level. Now you're like, people are going to watch and check it out. they're not going to be overwhelmed with football, I think.
I just can't believe they're starting in February next year, that soon, and trying to put it together. It's quick,
soon.
and to me, that's my concern, if you will, is just how quickly they're doing it. I think the XFL is doing it right by planning it out more long-term for 2020, but maybe they know something we don't know at Alliance. And maybe they will have all the players come in, but yeah, that's the thing. It's going to be hard to build these rosters up with all these different players because although we would like to see all these guys, we don't know if it'll happen. Johnny Manziel is a guy we haven't mentioned.
Yep.
He's looking good. It looks like he's healthy. It looks like he's competitive and athletic again and seems to be going in the right direction. That's a guy I know a lot of people would like to see in this Alliance League. And Keith, you mentioned some other guys before as well. But the thing also is, how are they going to be different in many different respects? We talked before about how they want to maybe take away kickoffs and punting and maybe just do away with that stuff. And we'll have to see how all that formulates ultimately. The things they have going for them is they got to deal with CBS to air the championship game. They're already attracting some big names, and like you said, they got to work on the players now, but they've got Spurrier to be the head coach for the Orlando team. And they have a lot of backing. A lot of star power is backing them in Hines Ward, Troy Polamalu, a lot of former NFL guys. So they have star power in that regard. We just have to see how it comes together on the field quality-wise. That's where we'll really see it ultimately. And it'll be fun, though. I know a lot of people, I'm sure you do, Keith, as well, that are just excited for more football.
Absolutely.
And just more football. And I also understand that there's always going to be a segment that will feel that there'll be football fatigue after the Super Bowl. I don't think so.
No.
I really don't. I've thought about this a lot now, and we have that lull period after the Super Bowl in February until March Madness gets going for a month that they need to fill up space with, and you'll get that next year. We'll have football right away.
Yeah.
And it will be interesting to see how they compete with March Madness,
yes.
How that plays itself out.
I don't think they beat out March Madness, though. That's going to be tough. They have to schedule around that, which will be kind of tough. And I think where you find those pockets will be when they have those breaks after the first two rounds, and then they have a break and then they come back. I think that's where they have to go in quick, hard.
Yeah.
Doing those, that's where you punch it in at. But and then you know what else they're competing with? The Masters.
Yes. That's the next event on the schedule.
They're competing with the Masters as well.
But then again, that just depends as well. I don't know how the Masters did this year rating-wise over the weekend.
I think a lot of people watched it for Tiger, but when they found out Tiger was not doing well in the first couple of rounds, it was okay, we don't want to watch it anymore.
Not to mention the fact that if you watched on Sunday, this past Sunday, his round was already finished before CBS started their coverage.
Yeah.
So I don't know how well they did, like I said, but I can't imagine it was great. I don't know how many people will be watching the Masters. You always have that segment, who does, but as far as driving ratings, it just depends on the quality of the Alliance and where they're at that point in time. You might have more people flipping over to see their games, perhaps.
Absolutely. I just think, honestly, the best time to do it is really at this breaking point when people's seasons are beginning. You got the Stanley Cup going to really to end. Right after the Stanley Cup, it's just really just baseball.
Yeah.
I think you slide it in there because baseball is really just the beginning of the time, and that's when you need that little more excitement and stuff, and that's where I think it should fit in.
That would be a good spot.
Yeah. I mean, that was the spot I suggest, but, ultimately, look, I think when you get played, football is an exciting game to watch. Everybody loves it. They're going to watch it. But I think what it is if you get players that are people know about. Tim Tebow, people know about. Players with storylines behind them, and Ray Rice, who still wants to play. I'll give it better. get those guys like Darrelle Revis, who's out of retirement. He's not playing no longer, but like maybe Antonio Cromartie, who wanted to he was trying to hopefully get another job, and it didn't happen, so he decided to retire. Go get those guys who still got something left in the tank. And I think you would start, that's how you really get your ratings up. And then people will really start watching, I think, What if Vince Wilfork comes in and just wants to play?
Big Vince. I don't know how much he's got left if he could possibly come out of retirement and make it interesting.
It'll be a lot of guys from the CFL, I think, the Canadian leagues. But I tell you this, what it does for football is it gives just more options and opportunities for these players out here that want to go play at the next level. Like, you don't have to necessarily, if you don't make it to the NFL, you can play for the CFL. You can do arena football, which, doesn't make a lot of money. It's not really publicized a lot. And then you got the Alliance is coming in, who's with CBS, is going to be good. You're going to get some money there for some of these players. But, those are like, what a great way to give players some more opportunity to continue their career. Ultimately, the NFL is the granddaddy of them all, but
yes,
I think the Alliance could be that G League.
It's not too extreme, I don't think, to think that they really could challenge them.
Yeah,
in a sense, like I don't think that's out of line to think that way at all.
I don't think they'll never surpass the NFL for the simple fact that the NFL has just had legends of people going in there, and I think they would never surpass that.
Yeah, I mean, you got to get in that conversation, Keith, to go off of that, you got to be around for like 90 years.
Yes, exactly.
Of a league.
But they can definitely challenge them. And then you got the XFL coming in. I think the XFL, the XFL will be in trouble if the Alliance comes in and has great ratings. It's going to be very tough for them.
Yes, and they do run the risk. It's a bit of a double-edged sword because initially I thought it was a great idea. I still do that they're going to start in 2020, just if you look at them just from a singular perspective, because they're going to give themselves time. That was one of their biggest downfalls last time, I think, was they just started too quick, and it just didn't work out ultimately because they didn't have enough time to get that team chemistry going to get good play on the field. This time I think it will be different. But, yeah, like you said, I don't think Vince McMahon thought at all that he would be competing with another football league in addition to the NFL. Now they've got that to ponder, and not to mention the fact that it was a guy who was very prominent on the XFL 30 for 30. So there's a lot to kind of think about once we look forward to these new leagues. There's a lot, and we'll have to see. But you're right. The Alliance going first, coming out in 2019, will definitely have an effect one way or another on the XFL in 2020. It's going to be fun to watch. I do want to switch gears now and segue to the draft because we're about 2 weeks away, actually 2 weeks specifically from tonight, from the NFL draft starting. And I want to get your take, Keith, on this point in time. Next week, we hope to have somebody on the show we can talk more about the draft with in depth. But as far as where your mock draft is at this point in time, who is your top quarterback? 2 weeks out right now, if you're Cleveland at number one, assuming they go with the quarterback, who are you picking?
I hate to say it, but Sam Darnold.
Yes, and why?
Sam Darnold surpassed everybody when he had that workout at USC in the rain. And he showed a lot of NFL guys that he could throw the ball in all types of weather. And that's the biggest concern, I think, for anything with player, I think GMs is how can they can throw the ball in the daytime, but can they deliver those passes in the rain, the snow? And he did that. And so I think he has the upper hand in everybody. So I have to say he surpasses people with that. I think he's going to make – it's a learning experience. It's going to be a learning experience for him. And I honestly felt that he should have stayed at USC because he made some mistakes. And I just thought he would be a Heisman. He was already a Heisman candidate last year, but he kind of fell off on that. But I just think he would want to be get a Heisman that was going to put him at the top. But, look – he did the right. He made the best decision, and for him, and he's now probably right now the top quarterback that's going to be selected. I thought it would be Josh Rosen, but it looks like Sam Darnold surpassed everyone.
213-261-7491, 213-261-7491. Give me Josh Rosen for my top quarterback in the draft. In fact, I'm sticking with, if I'm Cleveland, what I would do for a perfect scenario, I would take Barkley still at number 1, knowing that I'm going to pick again a couple of selections later, and give me whoever is left between Darnold, Rosen, and Josh Allen. Perfect world, I pick Barkley number 1, and then a couple of selections later, I take Josh Rosen if he's there. I just go off of what I saw in person when I saw USC take on UCLA last fall in person, and there was a big difference. And I understand that Darnold has improved since then. He threw really good in the rain, as we all know, like you said, Keith, at USC's Pro Day. But Josh Rosen has improved, too, since then. Darnold is getting the notoriety because USC is a bigger brand right now than UCLA is. And they get more media attention. Last time I checked, Fox Sports did not go to UCLA's media day. So there's a difference right now. I really like what I've seen with Rosen. He has that element of a quarterback that you just can't teach. Comfort in the pocket, the ability to kind of remain cool under pressure. I understand it's collegiate pressure, but it's got to start somewhere. He's my quarterback, the top guy I want to pick. And then I would take Darnold second. And then Josh Allen, again, is the wild card. We don't really know what he has coming out of Wyoming. But he's projected by all the different draft boards to be the third best quarterback in the draft. But, again, to me at number 1, give me Saquon Barkley. He's a generational type of talent if he can stay healthy.
Yes. I totally agree. You know, I think now the Giants they haven't officially come out and said it, but it kind of looks like no one's going to get Odell. They're going to keep Odell.
That's the rumor on the street, that Odell's not going to be traded.
That's the rumor. I am...
Too much talent there.
It's too much talent. But
and Gettleman has come out and said that for the Giants, for the front office there, that you don't quit on talent, and they're sticking by their guns.
You know, you don't quit on talent, but when talent hasn't been winning for a very long time, and he's been in the league for how many years now?
3,
4? It's
going to be his 4th year?
4th year. You still ain't won anything with him, and he wants a lot of money. I say you get rid of him. You got Sterling Shepard, that's more of a promising star. You know, I say that they can get so much more for him. So, but it looks like they're going to go ahead and keep him. So with that said, then, you know, I would take Saquon Barkley just to, like, screw the Giants, because they do need a running back.
That's true. Once those guys go off the board, Keith, and if you're a team that's picking between maybe 10 and 15 or 15 and 20 and you need a quarterback, would you take a chance on Baker Mayfield, or do you think he slides down further in the first round? Because he's projected to be late first round, maybe very early second.
I would take a chance because he seems like a quarterback that wants to learn. It wants to learn. He wants to get better. He has his head on straight. He doesn't have a lot of baggage on him, and he's got a promising future. He did well, and let's don't forget, he's Heisman quality. Let's just say what it is. And you just don't let that type of talent just go away. So, yeah, I would take a chance on that.
I would, too. The biggest thing is he's not Johnny Manziel.
No.
Not when you're comparing the two of them coming out of college right away. He's not Johnny Manziel. He had a more successful overall career at Oklahoma than Manziel did at Texas A&M. Like you said, he's willing to learn, and you just see the next level of talent there. You saw it in the Rose Bowl, his last game in college, and he showed it consistently over a long period of time. He can get the ball out to his receivers, and that's the big thing, is establishing that chemistry with your wideouts, and it has to start somewhere. So I agree, I would take a chance on him as well. You don't know. He really could have a better career than some of these other guys. he could get off to a hotter start than a Sam Darnold, because we both agree, I think, that Sam Darnold, although he could be picked number 1 by Cleveland, there's a good chance that he does not start as well as a lot of people would think.
Yeah. Better yet, let me ask you, what do you think the Patriots do? You know, Odell Beckham was a possibility.
I thought they were maybe going to
go for it.
Yeah, and trade those 2 first-round selections to the
Jordan
Giants.
Matthews.
Yeah,
which I'm not really like.
But you know what? It's the system in New England, and he's been a decent receiver. He's had the ability at times when he's been healthy. In Philly, he caught a lot of balls, and obviously not so much this past season. But again, to me, that's more about the system in New England. And if you're a receiver who can run your routes and catch the ball, you got a chance to compete there and be a player. Part of that receiving core. So it's not a bad move, but to me it would signal that obviously they knew the writing was on the wall with OBJ and they're moving in a different direction. My thought is that they hold on to the 2 first-round picks, and to me they have to go safety or corner, I should say, the secondary. I think that's where they have to go, and if not there...
So you're not a believer of the Twins?
I am, but they could use depth. They could. I mean, if one of them goes down, you're back to the same point we are now.
Yeah.
They could use depth there. Receiver, they're okay. They could use another tight end. They could use some depth at tight end.
They need a left tackle to take care of.
That's another one.
I think they got the DN that they needed over there. They definitely need a backup quarterback. I think that's what they're going for, I believe.
Yeah, that's the big thing. That's where this gets complicated because, okay, if they take a quarterback at that point in time, do they keep Brian Hoyer? Do they go with 3 quarterbacks?
You got to get rid of Brian Hoyer. Brian Hoyer's not playing. Brian Hoyer.
But then if Brady goes down, you got no shot next year.
Yeah,
well, you can
that's
make the
why
case
you got to get a quarterback because Brian Hoyer is not the answer. I don't believe he's the answer. He's not a good quality quarterback to me. I think that was all insurance money, to be honest with you.
Yeah, of course.
You know, and he's not going to, you know, you lose it. You have to go you have to go quarterback and left tackle. I think because you lost Nate Soldier and you're trying to protect Brady.
And while Dante Scarnecchia is still there for the offensive line coach, to get guys in and for them, because he's always done a good job of coaching these young guys up, they might as well do it now versus maybe just trying to patch it up this year, and if he retires after next season, trying to draft one then, and that could prove problematic potentially. We'll talk more about NFL free agency and the draft next week. Don't forget, next week, Tuesday through Thursday, it's our debut Tuesday night from Patrick Malloy's down on the pier in Hermosa Beach. We'll take a break. On the other side, we're going to speak with Sean Newman from Rolling Stone magazine talking about that HBO documentary, Andre the Giant, that came out on Tuesday evening. We'll get his thoughts on it, and we'll talk about a lot of different things that if you haven't seen it yet, you have to see it, number one. And also, we'll talk about a couple different things that you probably didn't know about Andre the Giant. That coming up on the other side, behind the mic, live from Kings Cove, inside the Toyota Sports Center.
Dave, what are you doing?
Just sending a gift to Dave 2037.
Who?
Me in the future. I save a little money from every paycheck as a gift to Dave 2037, so he can spend it on things like anti-gravity boots or a hologram Doberman, something cool like that. I think Dave 2037 deserves it. He worked hard. What are you getting Steve 2037?
I guess I was thinking Steve 2037 would just fend for himself.
Well, all right, but don't expect to be borrowing my anti-gravity boots.
You want to have money in your future? You got to start saving now. Putting some money from every paycheck into a savings account or contributing to your 401k can make a big difference later. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free ideas and easy ways to save, go to feedthepig.org. That's feedthepig.org.
Hey, let's just hope Steve 2037 doesn't get his hands on a cold time machine, because he is going to come back here and knock some sense into you.
This message brought to you by the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants and the Ad Council.
We're here early before they wake up. We stay late. We stay informed. We invest in the latest technology.
We take the time to train the next generation of doctors and nurses. We work together to make sure we heal their bodies and their minds.
We do this not because it's our job, but because this is about our veterans' lives. This is our mission. More than 300,000 of us working as one, together with families and loved ones. No matter where they live in this country, we'll be there.
We all come together and stand together to serve our veterans. We stand strong, united. Stand with us in caring for our veterans.
Everybody buckle up. Mom. Buckle up.
Let's go.
Buckle up.
Can we go to the store? Mom,
buckle
can we get
up.
some ice cream?
Everybody, buckle up.
A lot goes on in the car, but you're in control. So only move when you hear the click that says they're buckled in. Never give up until they buckle up. Learn more at safercar.gov/kidsbuckleup. A message from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
I'm more resourceful than I thought.
My suit can still make an impression.
My video games are still game changers.
And my lamp can bring others a bright future.
Because when I donate my stuff to Goodwill,
it helps fund job placement and training for people right in my community.
Now my stuff gets a second chance.
And will give someone in my community
a second chance too.
Goodwill. Donate stuff, create jobs. Find your nearest donation center at goodwill.org. That's goodwill.org. This message brought to you by Goodwill and the Ad Council.
We will never fully understand what we've asked of our military service members or their families, asking them to put themselves in harm's way, to endure it all. But we do understand that it's our turn, our duty, to keep them secure for the rest of their lives. Wounded Warrior Project long-term support programs help our most severely ill or injured veterans live independently, at no cost, for life, so that they might stand at ease. Join us at findwwp.org.
This is Behind the Mic with Brad Dalius.
Welcome back Behind the Mic, live inside the Toyota Sports Center on Thursday evening here. Don't forget, if you come out to the Toyota Sports Center and Kings Cove on Thursday evening, only $9 chicken enchiladas, Keith.
Oh, yeah.
Good food. I know we've
good.
been trying the pizza a lot here. I know you have. I've tried the Lakers pizza, which is like a barbecue chicken. It's top-notch. And the chicken enchiladas, that is their special here. On Thursday evenings, only $9. 3 enchiladas is what you get. Melted cheese served with Mexican rice and salsa. You can't beat it. Kings Cove.
Kings Cove has some of the best food in L.A. I'm not going to even lie. It's great. I'm fixated on their pizza.
He's not lying. It is true.
Every time I come here, I'm ordering like a pizza and like mozzarella sticks. That's like my thing. But, man, I mean, their pizza is excellent. So it's going to be hard for me to go to the enchiladas, but I'm down. I'm going to try it.
Something else that was excellent was this HBO Sports documentary about Andre the Giant. It came out on Tuesday evening. We kind of previewed it last night here on the end of the show. It was really good. They dove into so many different things. Once again, ESPN, formerly of ESPN, now he's a part of The Ringer, Bill Simmons. He served as the executive producer on it. And to talk more about that now is Sean Newman. He's a columnist for Rolling Stone magazine. He now joins us on the line here at Behind the Mic. Sean, how are things going tonight?
Hey, I'm doing good. How are you?
We're doing fantastic. Another busy night in the world of sports, as you know. Last night I got a chance to check out this documentary, Sean. We talked before tonight's show off the air as well. I thought they did a great job really covering everything from wall to wall. I'll be honest.
Brad, are you there?
I've heard of Andre the Giant, obviously, and I've known his ability to have a success over the years and how successful he was as a wrestler, but I didn't know too much about his personal life, and this documentary really did a good job of delving into those areas. I'm just curious right off the bat, Sean, what were your initial thoughts on this documentary?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of thought the same thing. I mean, I knew, obviously about Andre the Giant before, but I think Jason Heher, the director, did a great job diving into a lot of the behind-the-scenes stuff with Andre the Giant. I mean, usually with professional wrestling, you don't really get to hear a lot of the actual reality that goes on behind it. They usually try to keep that under wraps, but this documentary really gave you the full image of what was going on behind the scenes, how much pain Andre the Giant kind of lived his life through just to be a professional wrestler, and it really gave you a good insight into the human being behind the character of Andre the Giant.
What was the biggest thing as far as the mythological aspect, all the different myths you heard about Andre the Giant, Sean? What was maybe the one thing that stood out to you? Was it drinking the millions of bottles, I'm exaggerating, course, of wine, although it wasn't that too far off, or all the beers he pounded? I mean, what was the thing that maybe was the most eye-popping to you?
Yeah, I think Ric Flair said in the documentary that at one night he saw Andre the Giant drink 106 beers, and Gene Okerlund said that he would drink a case of wine every morning and stuff. But
incredible.
I mean, just I think the awe, you really get a lot of good imagery. They have a lot of good clips from the 70s and 80s when Andre the Giant was wrestling in these small venues all around North America, and you really get this clear image of all the fans that are kind of around him and just kind of looking up at awe at this human being that just transcended what it was to be a big man in professional wrestling and just to be a big guy in life. You know, he was booked at 7'4". Obviously, that's a professional wrestling promoter's description of how tall he actually was. But I mean, you're talking about a massive man with massive extremities, and I mean, they go into detail about how big his hands were, and you really get a good image of that throughout the documentary. They've got a lot of good clips from the past decades when he was alive in wrestling.
I got a question for you. You know, I was an Andre the Giant fan. I actually had his wrestling figures and things like that when I was younger. You know, knowing him he was like the villain of the WWF at the time, and you know, it was all about Hulk Hogan. And then, but offset and off camera, he was like this gentle giant. He was like this vicious guy in the ring, but a gentle giant, you know, outside the ring, and people had so many memories about him and things like that. Do you think that with the documentary coming out, that people who haven't really know who Andre the Giant is, that the story that was told was really it kind of covered both ends of everything about Andre the Giant, who he is as a person, but also who he is as a wrestler?
Yeah, I thought it was like I was saying, it was a great insight into kind of who Andre the Giant was behind the camera, kind of off the camera, you know, like he became famous from his feud with Hulk Hogan, where he portrayed this evil, bad character. But in reality, you get a lot of insight into this documentary into how nice of a, like you said, gentle giant Andre the Giant was. I think a lot of that comes from, they interview people from The Princess Bride that have, I mean, Billy Crystal, Rob Reiner, I think Robin Wright's in there too. All these actors are talking about how he was kind of behind the scenes when they weren't filming on camera, and they really just dive into like how good of a person he was on set. I think there's one part where Robin Wright talks about how they were filming and it was so cold outside, and Andre just comes up and he puts his huge hand over the top of her head almost as a hat. You know, like just like a winter hat just over her head just to keep her warm. And he would just do small things like that all the time, it seems. So, yeah, you really get a good insight into just how good of a person he was.
Sean Newman joining us here on Behind the Mic from Rolling Stone. Check out his article, 10 Things We Learned from HBO's Andre the Giant documentary on RollingStone.com. Yeah, what I didn't know was the fact that he was in so much pain, obviously. This was a guy who was the eighth wonder of the world, bigger than life. He obviously suffered from a condition that caused him his body and his extremities to be larger than most people. And what I learned through the documentary was that he refused any kind of treatment because he thought it would affect his image in wrestling, because this is what he was known as, and that's all he knew. It was his life, was wrestling. So you can kind of see both sides of that one. It was just really fascinating, Sean, to kind of go in and to take really a couple hours to go into the life of him. What was something that you learned that you weren't aware of about him that really helped you to write this article?
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't aware that he was refusing treatment throughout his career. Like you said, I mean, he gave his life to pro wrestling, and it's a pretty noble story. And obviously, he put Hulk Hogan over, which means that he lost to Hulk Hogan voluntarily at WrestleMania 3. He agreed to the script. And that was a pretty impressive point of the documentary and kind of the climax of the story that Jason Herr tells throughout this story, through this film, that Andre the Giant, he was living his life through so much pain. Like you said, he broke his ankle at one point and still tried to wrestle through it. And you get a clip of the doctor telling the story about just how much pain he was in and how he had ankle bones that were the size of a knee bone. He was this gigantic person that his body wasn't supposed to be a professional wrestler. And he was doing it anyways because that's all, like you said, all he knew. And you get to WrestleMania 3. Before WrestleMania 3 was starting to get booked and planned, he told Vince McMahon that I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore. And and Vince McMahon kind of took that as, if you're like you're done with wrestling, that means he's probably done with his life too, and he's ready to go and just be at peace. And Andre fought through the pain just because Vince McMahon asked him to do one more job and do one more show at WrestleMania 3, and he did the job, and he lost to Hulk Hogan and pushed Hulk Hogan's career and kind of is responsible for how big of a person Hulk Hogan became, and if without Hulk Hogan, professional wrestling wouldn't have been as big. And, there's all these trickle-down effects that Andre the Giant's really responsible for, and you really get a good look into just how respectable Andre the Giant's career was and all his decision-makings were for the betterment of professional wrestling.
How about Vince McMahon, though, Sean, not really even knowing himself if Andre the Giant was going to let Hulk Hogan win in WrestleMania 3.
Yeah.
That was great to me. That was great because deep down, I don't think he really did know. And you got to really credit Andre for being, this is a guy who had definitely a side of him for the theatrics and really played that up entertainment-wise. You just think about if he were to be inserted into 2018 today, this is a guy who would just be everywhere, and people would it would just be an instant classic with him, just a truly entertaining type of a guy. But I thought that aspect was great. And talking about the history of the WWE and obviously expanding from when Vince McMahon's dad was in charge and from a regional perspective, and that was really interesting to me because honestly, if you were in these different cities back then, Northeast, Midwest, South, you only saw the guys who fought in those particular cities. You have to actually would have to have traveled somewhere else. That dynamic was fascinating.
Yeah, there's a portion of the documentary that they spend just sort of explaining the territorial days of the 1960s, 70s, and 80s, and a little bit into the 90s of where professional wrestling was kind of roped off into different sections all around the world, especially in North America. But you get Andre the Giant, and he's this attraction that kind of travels around and becomes this big guy that your local hero has to face, and that's how he really became a nationally known professional wrestler, and even internationally known. He was fighting in Japan and stuff. But yeah, like you said, also like you said, he had a really good sense of humor, and he was kind of toying with Hulk Hogan and Vince McMahon before WrestleMania 3, and just kind of just dragging him along, making him freak out a little bit about whether or not the match is going to go how they planned it to go. And, it ended up going exactly how they planned. But Hulk Hogan, as he describes in the documentary, didn't know until the very last minute that he was going to actually win and how the match was going to end. It's a really fascinating story into the most famous professional wrestling match of all time.
Listening and actually listening to you guys talk about the documentary, because I didn't see the previews of it. I read the article though of it. But looking at this, there should be a movie about Andre the Giant, to be honest with you, in theaters. I mean, look, I mean, you have we had talked about the Joe Paterno thing, and they're having a movie coming out. They had a movie come out on HBO about that. But honestly, I wonder if they really considered doing an actual movie to big screen on Andre the Giant, because this story just alone of us, looking at the article and you guys talking about the documentary a little bit, him fight within himself, that's a movie within itself. I think that it should go to big screen. People will definitely watch it. I mean, Andre the Giant's an icon. He's an icon wrestler. You know what I mean? So why not? They had Hulk Hogan. Go ahead.
Tell me an actor that you can get to play Andre the Giant, though. He's not just a once-in-a-lifetime wrestler, but a once-in-a-lifetime human being, you know?
Yeah.
Pretty big guy. So that would be my question if I was a director. Where would I find an actor that could truly portray how big Andre the Giant was? But I agree with you. It's a fascinating story, and there should be some movies coming out. Hopefully they'll work on that.
Yeah.
It would be great. Maybe this will serve as somewhat of a prelude to that. We shall see. Yeah, that's a great point. There's only maybe a handful of actors or so who could actually fit that role and accurately. I think you're going to have to
actually be from the WWE.
Yeah, right. They might have to dip into that. They might have to.
Yeah.
I mean, the next biggest person I can think of big like Andre the Giant is who? Maybe Kane or Mark
Big
Henry?
Show.
Big Show?
Mark Henry. Yeah.
Big Show. Put Big Show in there with an afro. And there you go.
Yeah.
I mean,
that could work.
That would absolutely work, you know. But you're absolutely right. And let me tell you, after seeing the documentary, how does it change the WWE? Like some of these newer wrestlers coming in and really didn't know who. I mean, of course, I'm pretty sure they did their homework and know who Andre the Giant was, but really didn't really know him as a person. How does this change the WWE in a way of like the history of it, and for these guys, like what is it you think it does for these wrestlers that are up and coming now and seeing a documentary like this?
Sorry, I had trouble hearing you for a second. Did you say how does this portray the WWE?
Well, yeah, how does it change the WWE in a way, and you know, how does this inspire these other WWE wrestlers, these new and up and coming guys to, you know, when they see someone like an icon like Andre the Giant and what his life's been through with injuries, things like that, how he went through them and played through them. What does it do to them, you think, in their mindset of things in the wrestling world?
Yeah, I imagine it's very inspiring for the current wrestlers all across the world, not just in WWE, but all across the promotions that are everywhere and kind of growing, especially in Japan and stuff like that. But I mean, that's kind of how professional wrestling locker rooms work, is that there's these older veterans that come in and they know the ropes, no pun intended, but they know how things go, and they kind of pass the knowledge down to the younger guys. And it's a really almost like a gigantic family, the history of professional wrestling, where things are just passed down. And Andre the Giant, sort of the grandfather of that. And I think you can really, it's a great thing that you can have this documentary and get some of the knowledge and some of that heart that is in Andre the Giant's career and get that from him without him obviously being alive at this point. So I think it's an extremely valuable piece for anyone interested in professional wrestling, just to learn how the business goes and just learn how, I guess, quote unquote, how people should act in their professional wrestling careers. And I think he's kind of a standard bearer for that.
Once again, Sean Newman joining us from Rolling Stone. Another thing that stood out to me in this documentary towards the end was Andre somewhat passing the torch off to Hulk Hogan after WrestleMania 3. Didn't really know too much about that story and how that eventually played out, but it obviously that's exactly what happened, and it really helped to launch Hulk Hogan into even more stardom, even more so than what he was at that point in time.
And you know what else is just interesting you say that, Brad, because you know, there was a lot of going on at that time, like that, you know, Hulk Hogan was coming. He was an up-and-coming rising star at the time, and it was, like he said, you didn't know, Vince McMahon didn't even know if Andre the Giant was going to let him, like, win that match. And then how he won was a body slam and then a leg drop.
Yeah.
Like, that was big by Andre the Giant getting body slammed by Hulk Hogan and then the leg drop, and then that was it. But that was, you know, that was a big deal at the time, you know, because Andre the Giant was the man. So it's interesting to, like, when you said that, it's kind of interesting to hear that because, you know, Andre the Giant was, you know, I think it was very hard for the WWF. They didn't know what was going to happen when they lost Andre the Giant, from what I gather. They didn't know what was going to happen, and now you see Hulk Hogan came in, and he's become an icon within himself. But, yeah, Andre the Giant definitely lifted him to surpass him, so I definitely have to agree with you on that.
Yeah, HBO did this
and
real
it's kind
justice.
of, I mean, yeah, go ahead, Brad.
No, I was just going to say HBO really did this documentary justice, Andre the Giant, and I don't think they really missed out on anything. It was an hour and a half just about, and that's what you want to see. A lot of times these documentaries are an hour or just under and doesn't really fully do it justice. But this one, I think they hit the nail on the head.
Yep, I agree. I definitely think it's a must-watch for anyone even slightly interested in professional wrestling, or just to see a little and learn a little bit more about Andre the Giant's life and career.
Well put. Follow him on Twitter, by the way, at Newman the Human. Sean, really appreciate the time here tonight. Great article. If you haven't checked it out yet, definitely do so. 10 Things We Learned from HBO's Andre the Giant documentary right now on RollingStone.com. We appreciate the time, Sean. Thanks so much, and we hope to talk to you again sometime soon.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for coming
Anytime.
on.
Take care, Sean.
Bye.
There he goes once again, Sean Newman from Rolling Stone. Did a great job on really breaking down and analyzing Andre the Giant, the HBO documentary that debuted on Tuesday evening. Like I said, it's a must-watch if you haven't already done so yet. Just being able to check it out and to see. They have Bill Simmons over there now, and I tell you, all the stuff he puts together is really good.
Yeah.
And this one is no different than that.
Oh, man, I love Andre the Giant. 7'4".
It's incredible.
300 pounds. I mean, come on, man.
You'll never see anything like it again, probably.
You definitely won't. You definitely won't. And just the who he was as a person, yeah, and he was known as a gentle giant.
Yes.
Like, everybody loved the guy to that. You've heard so many stories about that before, and I believe that it was like a 30-30 on him as well that happened a while ago. And they did 30-30 on him.
For Andre the Giant?
Yeah.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
There was a 30-30 on him, I believe. And they had talked about that, because that's what I actually heard it from, was that just how he was off the scene. But I'm definitely going to watch that documentary, because I want to just get that inside. The article's great, though.
Yeah.
The article's great.
Absolutely. The one thing I didn't mention with Sean is in the documentary they talk about, and people know this with the different stories that have been passed along throughout the years, was the one night when he got so drunk he passed out in a hotel lobby.
Yeah.
And he was just there for the night because they couldn't pick him up. Everyone was I believe the hotel help was sleeping, and there was no one to pick him up. And I mean, one guy or two guys could not do it alone, obviously.
In a forklift.
It's crazy. I mean, that is a big dude right there. And after he's passed out, I mean, drunk, there's nothing you can do. They let him sleep there the whole night.
I just don't understand how guys could fight that guy. I mean, he would sit on them. He would crush them. I mean, geez, 300 pounds of force just coming down on you.
And the one crazy thing was, towards the end of the doc, when after the WrestleMania fight with Hulk Hogan, when he starts to go downhill and with his health starting to deteriorate, in some of these fights, he almost uses his hand to kind of prop up his body. The hand is against the ring, against the rope, and the other half of his body is just kind of just fighting off the other guy. And it only took one half of him. He could just fight off another guy and himself. And just a massive human being, and really an incredible career, obviously. And just a short life. Obviously, he passed away at 46.
46.
They talk about that at the end of the documentary there, him passing away in Paris. He had actually flown, so he wound up purchasing it was like a farm, a bigger property in North Carolina later in life. This is maybe later in life. Later in his life, it was a short life. Obviously, he passed away at 46, so this was maybe like in his 30s. He purchased that in North Carolina because it actually reminded him of his hometown in France. And he wound up traveling back to France a couple days or so before he ultimately wound up dying. His dad was getting sick, and his dad passed away when he came back to visit him in France. And then not too long later, I want to say, is when Andre died of a heart attack there in a hotel room in Paris in 1993. Yeah. So it's a story, obviously, of a great guy and a great career, and obviously a tough ending gone too soon there. But really, really incredible. One of the better sports documentaries I've seen in a while.
Yeah, I mean, hey, and you can still to this day watch the classic Hulk Hogan versus Andre the Giant. That was still, even though Andre the Giant was at the end, that was the end of his career.
Yeah.
That was still a great match. I mean, you can YouTube that, and I mean, that's where I watched it. You know, you YouTube that, and you can just like, wow, that was an incredible match. He knew how to put on the show. Oh, yeah. Like I said, he had a keen eye for the theatrics. Yeah. Yeah, he definitely knew how to put on the show, and it was great to actually sit here and talk with Simon about, you know, reliving Andre the Giant for a minute, you know? Oh, yeah. Andre the Giant was a great fighter, so. Final thoughts, Keith, for the week as we wrap up tonight's show? I'm going to say my final thoughts are going to go to the teams that didn't make the NBA playoffs, like we had talked about. I mean, hopefully for all these teams that they can get better next year. You know, we can possibly see some of these teams make the playoffs. One in mind, the Los Angeles Lakers. Yes, I can't see the Los Angeles. We cannot have another. The biggest market in the two biggest markets, New York and LA, not make the playoffs. It's incredible. Yeah, it is incredible, and throw Chicago in there as well. Yeah, like Chicago as well. So I gotta go with that. So that's my final thoughts. Hopefully those teams and those markets can get better, get back on track, because those are teams that need to be in the playoffs, and those are teams that make the most money, to be honest with you, most revenue. Of course. So we got to see you guys in the playoffs this time. Come on, Magic Man, put a little sprinkle on it, whatever you got to do. But let's get these Lakers back in these playoffs, man, please. Hey, thoughts and prayers go out to that hockey team up in Canada this past week. The tragedy there that unfolded along the bus ride, and that was tough. I mean, we talked about it last night when we were over at Grunyon's looking at the different TV monitors with all the home ice advantage and how people just get up for these games. It doesn't even have to be a playoff game. In Toronto, for a Leafs game, it could be game number 32 of the regular season, and they're going nuts like it's game 7 of the Cup Finals. Yeah. So they obviously love their hockey, and I just remember talking with a guy from Canada years ago, Keith, and how his son was already they're already getting him involved with hockey, and he was only like 7-8 years old, but they just get him involved right off the bat to be in the social circle of it, because that's just like part of the life there. And obviously for this tragedy to happen, it's tough. One of the more difficult tragedies we've seen in sports recently, and just once again, thoughts and prayers out to that whole team and that whole base there in Canada. And I'm sure during the playoffs at some point they'll have some kind of moment, whether it be maybe a game in Winnipeg or Toronto or something. There'll be some kind of moment, no doubt, in the Stanley Cup playoffs to honor those who died in that tragedy. I totally agree, and prayers to the families and those victims, and hopefully things will, they can get well for the programs and stuff, because it's tough to see those type of things. You never wish that on any team, or you never want to see that happen. So thoughts and prayers, same thing. Well put. Great show tonight. Thanks again to the legend, Roy Jones Jr., for calling in. We were able to get through that interview with him. We got his thoughts on Triple G and who he may fight on May the 5th. And big thanks to Sean Newman from Rolling Stone for his thoughts tonight. Don't forget, RollingStone.com. Check out his article about Andre the Giant, the HBO documentary. If you haven't seen it yet, definitely do so. It's up now on HBO. A really, really good documentary. Like I said, one of the best I've seen in a while now. Don't forget, next week we start Tuesday nights live from Patrick Malloy's down at the pier in Hermosa Beach. Tuesday through Thursdays will be our new lineup starting next week. Keith and I can't wait for it. If you haven't come out yet to any of our shows, why not make Tuesday your first one? It'd be a great way to break in our new place. Great Taco Tuesday. They have the works there from Patrick Malloy's. We'll be there to celebrate it on Tuesday. Have a great weekend, everybody. For Keith, I'm Brad. Keep living the dream. We'll talk to you next week.